But one of the weirdnesses of the Anthropocene is that in the wealthier parts of the world, heat is now more of a health problem in mild climates than in hot ones. Over the past 20 years, people living in usually cool central France, where home AC is uncommon, have been far more likely to die from heat waves than people living in usually sweltering Phoenix, where over 90% of the households have at least some form of air conditioning. Cooling the indoors warms the outdoors. In this chapter, Green talks about how history classes in the future will highlight that we knew carbon emissions were affecting the planet's climate back in the 70s, and the efforts of the 80s and 90s to limit carbon emissions ultimately failed. Now, by saying this, Green is not suggesting they failed and thus had no value. We have made some strides since the 70s in combating climate change, and staying optimistic but realistic about the work to be done remains vital. But it is useful to look at the failings of those who came before to understand our own and those that will likely come after. But as Green quotes Charles Dudley Warner in saying, "It is fortunate that each generation does not comprehend its own ignorance. We are thus enabled to call our ancestors barbarous." But that brought two different Charles Dudley Warner quotes to my mind. Firstly, regrets are idle, yet history is one long regret. Everything might have turned out so differently. The fortunate among us judge the past for choosing in some ways convenience over progress, but we too tax our energy system and have to strive to do good while existing in a system that is inherently unfair, but maybe it's always been that way. Maybe we just have to figure out how to balance it a little better, if not a lot better, than those who came before. For now, I know this much. When I was a kid in Florida, it seemed natural to grab a sweatshirt before heading to the movie theater. Green wrote that, and I felt that. A lot of the Florida-specific references in this book have captured my attention and made my own experiences feel very seen, but this one takes the cake. Air conditioning in my home or otherwise was always a background hum, and as a Floridian all my life, it's always been there. I've never really appreciated it. I've just known I've preferred to be shivering just a bit inside. The unnatural shaping my natural. Being a product of nature, but having some control over the nature around me. It's undeniably pleasant, even if it's not ideal. But writing to you from the start of the summer of 2022, some control in a wildly changing world is appealing, even if it taxes our energy systems more than is ideal or is fair for others. As Green ends this chapter by stating, "I am immensely grateful for air conditioning. It makes human life far better." As an aside, I didn't even cover the good air conditioning does for medicine and storage in general, but it's a dizzying list. Link included in the down there. But we need to broaden our definition of what constitutes climate control, and quickly. Speaking of which, that second Charles Dudley Warner quote, often misattributed to Mark Twain, is,
"Everybody talks about the weather, but nobody does anything about it."
Thankfully, people are doing something about the weather, just not always what we ought to. I give air conditioning, on virtue of still being a Floridian, a begrudging 3.5 stars. Thanks for watching. I'll see you on Friday.
I cannot live another day without air conditioning.
Says tomorrow's gonna be hotter.
Hotter?
Like yesterday.
Yesterday you said you'd call Sears.
I'll call today.
You'll call now.
I'll call now.